Now on to the big global headline that we are tracking today. US President Donald Trump, together with Russia, has proposed a 28-point peace plan to end the war in Ukraine. And the plan was drafted without the involvement of Kyiv, as per reports, or Brussels. The proposal would force Ukraine to cede large parts of its territory, including Crimea, Luhansk and Donetsk, to Russia, limit its military to 6 lakh personnel, and constitutionally bar it from ever joining NATO. In return, Russia pledges not to invade neighboring countries, while NATO agrees to stop expanding. Furthermore, it's asking Ukraine to hold elections within 100 days of signing the deal. The plan also calls for Ukraine to become a non-nuclear state under the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, a reconstruction fund of $100 billion from frozen Russian assets would be used to rebuild Ukraine. Meanwhile, Russia would be gradually reintegrated into the global economy, including a phased lifting of sanctions and a return to the G8. Some controversial, quote-unquote, soft power measures are also included, like education programs, promoting tolerance, and a Trump-led peace council to enforce the deal. Some measures that draw similarity with Trump's Gaza plan. Now, meanwhile, Ukrainian President Zelensky's office confirmed he has received the draft and will speak with Trump soon. He said he's open to working with the U.S. on a peace deal, despite strong pushback from some of his European allies. Ukraine's biggest European allies welcomed USA's plan to end the war in Ukraine, but disagreed with certain aspects of the proposal. German Chancellor France's Emmanuel Macron and UK's Prime Minister agreed that the current line of contact should be the starting point for any peace talks.
We will continue to support Ukraine, as we've done before. Ukraine can count on us. Because this is not only an aggression against Ukraine, but it is an aggression against the principles of the UN Charter. It's on European soil, and therefore we will support Ukraine for as long as it takes. As you said, yesterday a 28-point plan was made public. We will discuss the situation both with European leaders and with leaders here in the sidelines of the G20. I will also reach out to President Zelensky to discuss the matter. Important is a key principle we have always upheld, and that is nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine.
And to discuss this big development further, we are joined by two senior journalists, Michael Anderson and Tatiana Kukareva. Thank you so much for making time and being so patient with us. I'd like to start with Michael Anderson first. Michael, while Ukraine's allies have said that the deal heavily favors Russia, President Zelensky has been very cautious. Now, how's the country viewing this 28-point plan?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, we have to say that Zelensky has said that his exact words was, "I'm not going to come out with any harsh comments on the plan right now." That's basically the same as saying, "You're off your rocker. What you are suggesting is a joke, but I will pay you the respect because you are, after all, the American president." Europeans are even more polite, but I think when I talk to contacts in around the EU, nobody believes this. This is a non-starter. It's basically the Russian dictator's wish list that Trump, for whatever strange reason, has decided to publish.
Right. Tatiana Kukareva, your first thoughts on this 28-point plan. There are reports that Ukraine was kept out of this. Is there any clarity on why Ukraine was kept out of this deal while drafting something that involves them?
Well, I'm not sure that, it's been said, but I think it needs to be said that this plan is yet to be officially introduced to the Russian diplomatic channels. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has come out and said that there has not been any official contact. So this, the suggestion that it was drafted in such close collaboration is an interesting take on this. I would like to just, come out and say it that something that, again, needs to be said. This plan is very far away from a wish list of the Russian president. Let's please avoid the strong words here if we can. But it is a point of sort of a recalibration that needed to be happening by now. You know, we need to understand that it has almost been 4 years now. So if there was something that we could say during the first year, then by year number 3, it's already, we need to recalibrate the demands specifically from the European side of this conversation. You know, we can't go on demanding the same things for 4 years and expecting them to become any more realistic. In the meantime, within the conflict, you know, the Russian forces have been moving gradually. We're gaining more territory. So to expect that something magical happens and past 4 years into this conflict, Moscow is just suddenly going to say, oh, sorry, let's just go back to the starting point, is simply not realistic. So anybody who is saying that this plan is a non-starter is simply not interested in the end to this conflict.
Right. Mr. Anderson, I want to understand from you, can Ukraine ever accept a plan that says Crimea and Donbas belong to Russia forever?
Of course not. It's even in the Ukrainian constitution that the territorial integrity of Ukraine has to be respected by its own president, and therefore he cannot sign anything like this. I'm a little bit confused here who Tatiana is actually representing when she says we about Russia and talks about European demands. Europe has one demand. That's Mr. Putin, go home. That's the only demand we have as Europeans. When I say this is a wish list for the Russian dictator, it's pretty evident he doesn't want Ukraine to be in NATO. That's in the plan. He wants the Ukrainian military cut down to half. That's in the plan. He wants to get 20% of the neighboring country he's occupied. That's also in the plan. He wants to get rid of the sanctions that he's been put under because he is committing genocide in Ukraine. That's also in the plan. So I'm a little bit surprised how Europe comes into this. Europe has not been part of working out the plan. This plan has, according to all reports, been worked out by Putin's money bag man, money launderer, Kirill Dmitriev, and Steve Witkoff, who is an estate agent from New York, but happens to be a good friend of Donald Trump.
Right. Tatiana, would you like to respond to that?
Well, I don't believe that there needs to be a response. You know, I'm just listening to a never-ending kind of venomous outburst, and which speaks basically for itself. You know, when you ask me why I say we and who do I represent, I can direct that question back at you very easily. Who do you represent when you say we as Europeans? Because as far as I'm concerned, there is no united opinion within Europe. There are countries that have been actually responding to that warmongering narrative quite loudly, although it is very convenient to forget about them, obviously. But, you know, I don't believe that when we're still sitting here 4 years into the conflict, and the only real argument from our European counterparts is that there is a dictator who is allegedly committing genocide in Ukraine, and journalists find themselves at a place where they use the words like genocide, which needs to be established by a very, very specific body that needs to declare something genocide, you know, and journalists feel free to use that word without any sense of responsibility. Then what are we even talking about? It's been 4 years and nothing has changed. It's just very, very loud, warmongering rhetoric that would never help this conflict to come to any sort of resolution.
Right. Mr. Anderson, I want to understand from you is that the plan, the draft, if I may say, promises strong help if Russia attacks again, but no NATO membership. Is that enough protection for Ukraine?
Of course, there's not one single Ukrainian who will believe these things just because they are some sort of put into some sort of plan by some sort of people. The warmongering Tatiana talks about, I mean, that's just a pure lie. She talks about 4 years of this has been going on. Let's not forget that it only started because Russia unprovokedly invaded Ukraine. This is not something that's going on like a tit for tat between two sides. This is a one-sided invasion, war crimes against Ukraine. And Tatiana, the United Nations, which I think Russia and you still recognizes, last week said that Russia was committing war crimes in Ukraine. So this is not something that happens. This is not a Ukraine versus Russia, no.
Michael, has it said genocide?
This is war crimes. This is war crimes. This is something you go to prison for. You should go to prison for. So, of course, nobody in Ukraine will take this seriously. If the reason why Zelensky is not refuting even to listen to it is because he's a polite man that needs some sort of international solution to this, and afterwards he needs some sort of international guarantees. But of course, no Ukrainians are going to believe anything that a Russian dictator who has killed several 100,000 and turned 10 million Ukrainians into refugees. Of course, no Ukrainians will believe Putin just because he says, I'll sign this. And therefore, this plan is, of course, dead in the water. It's not a plan. It's a money launderer and a real estate agent from New York who put something down on a piece of paper. There's no plan there.
Right. Some strong words coming in there. Tatiana, I wanted to understand from you. At this point in time, we're almost nearing 4 years of this war. What is Russia's intent at the moment? If Ukraine, hypothetically, let's assume, because we don't have an official word yet from both sides, if Ukraine refuses to give the part of land that has been asked for, will Russia still show an intent to talk or end the war?
Well, Russia has shown every intent to talk since the beginning of this conflict. However, our intentions have never been met. Let me just bring you back to this again, this rant that we just heard about two presidents actually. One being he's not even being named because obviously my counterpart is not even. It's just so insulting to him that Donald Trump does anything that he doesn't even talk about. I mean, the level of disrespect is just astonishing to me. From a journalistic perspective, that's just unacceptable in terms of the responsibility that we carry with the words that we actually put out of our mouths. The problem here being that, there has not been any talk. We have heard Kiev say time and again that, no, we're not going to talk, we're not going to talk, we're not going to talk. So the hypotheticals, I believe, here are not quite acceptable. We need to see what happens now with this plan, which is very much a starting point. It's not a plan per se. It could be a very good starting point for a real negotiation, because to think for anyone, in Europe, I understand that the countries that are closest to us must be experiencing a lot of pressure, especially if their media are inundated by journalists like Michael, who throw around words like dictator and genocide without any sense of responsibility again. However, to believe that after 4 years of this conflict and the 8 years that presided to it, that Crimea, for instance, would ever become Ukrainian again after the people of Crimea voted and decided to rejoin Russia is clearly very absolutely delusional. You can't say very because, but there's no extent to which I could express how delusional that is. To expect that the people of Donbass who endured a terrible 8 years after Maidan, who endured the constant attacks, the counter-terrorist operation, that's what they called it, who are now fighting alongside Russian troops, who also decided to join Russia and asked for Russia's help, that they would consciously agree to go back to the country that subjected them to 8 years of a counter-terrorist operation that was so under lit, let's say, in European media,
Right.
Is also absolutely delusional. So that plan could actually be the only thing that could start an actual conversation at this point, because we see people from Europe screaming that, no, we're not going to talk. This is a genocide. And let's just turn it all 4 years back, and preferably even further back,
Right. All right. We have completely...
Can I just clarify a couple of things here, please?
We have run out of time, but if you could wrap in just 60 seconds.
I will do it very fast. Yes. I do a lot of teaching of young journalists, and I'm very thankful to
That is
Tatjana.
very unfortunate.
You've delivered a perfect set of lies. Perfect set of lies. This is the exact manipulation we hear from the so-called Russian so-called journalists, that Russia wants to talk. Zelensky invited Putin to Istanbul in the summer to talk, and Putin was too scared. When you talk about Crimea and Donbass having voted to join Russia, they were occupied, my lady. They were occupied. People were killed. That's not joining anybody.
Look, I'm not going to listen to this, because this is,
no, you again... Not.
All right. All right. Okay. All right. What we'll do is, we've heard both sides, and let's avoid any personal comments, but thank you so much. I think at the end of the day, what India wants and what the world wants is peace, for peace to prevail. And we really hope that both sides can come to the negotiating table and end this misery for a lot of civilians, for a lot of innocent people who've lost their lives, and the whole world is watching. But thank you so much, Michael Anderson and Tatjana, for making time and speaking with CNBC-TV18.